Dylan Schumaker walked into the courtroom with a calm he didn't feel. He had rehearsed the scene in his head. Tears, trembling, a desperate plea for forgiveness. He wanted the victim's family to believe he had never meant any harm. For a few seconds, it almost seemed like it could work. But Judge Bowler held a piece of evidence that shattered that illusion. A phone call Dylan made to his mother from custody, where his words betrayed the truth behind his act.
That on July 23, 2013, in a phone call to your mother from the holding center, you stated, and I got a quote from the court reporter, "I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they're going to feel sorry for me," end quote.
That call changed everything. Dylan's act of remorse in court was only an act. The real story of what happened that day could no longer be hidden. Dylan Schumaker was 16 years old at the time, a high school student from Springville, New York. Quiet and somewhat withdrawn, he had no criminal record and was generally described by teachers and neighbors as a typical teenager, though he sometimes struggled with personal issues. Dylan lived with his mother in a modest home, and he often spent time with his 18-year-old girlfriend, Ashley Smith. Ashley was the mother of two young children, Austin, almost 2 years old, and a 3-month-old infant. Dylan was not related to the children in any way, nor was he their father. Despite this, he occasionally helped care for them when Ashley had work or other obligations. Ashley's personal history revealed challenges in her family life. She had been asked to leave her father's home due to ongoing personal issues, and subsequently moved in with Dylan and his mother. Dylan's mother allowed the three of them to live together under the same roof. Dylan himself had a history of anger issues and severe attention deficit disorder, ADD. He had been prescribed medication for ADD, but often refused to take it, which sometimes made it harder for him to control his temper or focus. Despite knowing these risk factors, Ashley occasionally left Dylan in charge of her children, though she generally preferred to arrange for other supervision whenever possible. Friends and neighbors noted that Dylan was not violent by nature, but could become frustrated when situations felt overwhelming. He had spent time babysitting the children before, and most of the time, he seemed capable of handling routine tasks. However, those who knew him also recognized that his anger and impulsiveness could sometimes make simple situations difficult to manage. It was a Thursday in Springville, New York, and the day started like any other for 16-year-old Dylan Schumaker. The sun was bright, and the streets were quiet. Dylan's girlfriend, Ashley Smith, had to go to work that afternoon, and she had to leave her two young boys behind, Austin, almost 2 years old, and his baby brother, just 3 months old. Normally, she would ask a family member to watch them, but that day, no one was available. Dylan had babysat them before, and Ashley trusted him. She believed everything would be fine. Dylan's parents were also away at work, so the house felt unusually quiet, except for the sound of tiny feet and small voices. Austin ran around, playing with toys, his little hands grabbing at everything he could reach. Dylan watched him, trying to keep track of both boys. At first it seemed simple. Feed the baby, keep Austin entertained, make sure nobody got hurt. Dylan thought he could handle it, but toddlers do not make life easy. Austin wanted attention all the time. He cried when he didn't get his way. He spilled his food. He climbed on furniture he shouldn't climb. Dylan felt his patience wearing thin. The little boy was just days away from his second birthday, full of energy, loud, and impossible to ignore. Around 5:20 p.m., Dylan says everything changed. He claims Austin had an accident. He fell down the stairs. The fall left Austin hurt, and Dylan panicked. Dylan quickly texted Ashley, letting her know what happened. He wrote that Austin had bitten his tongue in the fall, and he tried to make it sound like it was nothing serious. Ashley responded, trying to stay calm, but Dylan could feel the tension building in the room. After the fall, Dylan tried to soothe Austin. He tried to calm the boy's cries. He tried to clean him up, give him water, maybe distract him with a toy. But toddlers do not respond to reason. Austin screamed. He cried. He fussed no matter what Dylan did. Dylan felt himself losing control. The small house seemed to close in on him. The walls, the crying, the constant noise. It was too much. Around 6:20 p.m., Dylan says he gave Austin a bath. He tried to get him clean, warm, and settled. The baby brother was sleeping in his crib, unaware of the tension building in the room. Dylan thought maybe a bath would help. He scrubbed, dried, and tried to get Austin to cooperate, but Austin kept squirming, kicking, and crying. Dylan's frustration kept growing. After the bath, Dylan put Austin to bed. He hoped that some rest would calm the boy, that maybe now things could get easier. Dylan stayed nearby, watching him, trying to make sure nothing went wrong. But the quiet didn't last long. Austin cried again, and Dylan found himself at a breaking point. The frustration, the chaos, the constant crying. It all became too much to handle. According to Dylan, he tried to calm Austin down, but nothing worked. The boy refused to listen. The noise didn't stop. The tears kept coming. Dylan said he didn't mean to hurt Austin seriously, but he admits that he lost his temper. He slapped the boy, spanked him, and at some point, he says he hit him with more force than he intended. The tension in the house escalated as Dylan tried to control the boy and make the crying stop. At one point, Dylan says he used a pillow over Austin's face. He struck the boy multiple times, trying to quiet him. Dylan insists that he never intended to kill Austin, that he just wanted the crying to stop. But the boy wouldn't stop. He cried and resisted. Every small movement, every wail seemed to push Dylan further. His mind raced. He tried different things. Anything he could think of to make Austin calm down. Hours passed. Dylan tried to feed, change, and soothe Austin. He tried holding him, talking to him, even punishing him, hoping that would teach him to behave. But toddlers do not understand punishment in the same way adults do. Austin continued to cry. His tiny body kept moving. He kicked, screamed, and refused to obey. Dylan's frustration grew heavier with every minute. He felt trapped, overwhelmed, and desperate. At 8 p.m., Dylan says he found Austin unresponsive. The little boy wasn't moving. He wasn't crying. Something was very wrong. Dylan panicked. He didn't know what to do. The hours of chaos, the tension, and his own actions now collided into one terrifying moment. Austin's small body lay still, and Dylan's mind raced faster than ever. Dylan called Ashley again, his hands shaking as he picked up the phone. He tried to explain what had happened, to tell her that Austin wasn't waking up. He didn't know if she could help, or if it was too late. Panic mixed with fear and guilt. He dialed 911, the operator on the other end trying to guide him. He followed the instructions, or tried to, but every second felt slower than the last.
The 16-year-old, upon discovering at about 8:20 that the child was not breathing, yelled for his mother. I'm not certain. I don't know. The 16-year-old, in fact, then made a 911 call using his cell phone.
The baby brother was still in his crib, oblivious to the panic around him. Dylan couldn't think about anything else. He whispered Austin's name, hoping the boy would move, hoping this was some terrible mistake. Dylan's voice shook as he explained the situation to the 911 operator. He told them about the fall earlier, about the bath, about trying to get Austin to calm down. He mentioned the crying, the struggles, everything he had done to try to fix it. But the operator's calm voice couldn't erase the fear that filled Dylan. The house, which had started as just a normal home, now felt like a cage. Dylan felt trapped by what had happened. He tried to stay calm, tried to follow instructions, but he couldn't stop thinking about Austin, about his cries, about how everything had gone so wrong. When the emergency responders arrived, Dylan tried to explain again. He showed them where Austin had been, where he had tried to help, but the paramedics saw things that didn't make sense. Austin's injuries didn't match the story Dylan was telling.
The child is crying, but in fact, there's no explanation for why anyone would strike a child like that. It can't be explained, it can't be mitigated. It can't suggest any reason that would justify it, but there was some indication that the child was crying just before that.
They asked questions. Dylan's answers kept changing. He admitted that he had lost his temper at one point, but insisted he didn't mean to hurt Austin badly. The police arrived soon after. They asked Dylan to come with them to the station. Inside, The room was small, bright, and intimidating. Dylan sat on a hard chair while officers asked questions. He tried to explain everything that had happened during the day. He admitted to getting frustrated with Austin's crying. He admitted to losing control for a short time, but he insisted he never meant for anything serious to happen. Investigators examined the scene and talked to witnesses. They created a timeline. Dylan's frustration had begun earlier in the afternoon. They noticed patterns of behavior. Moments when he tried to calm Austin, moments when he grew frustrated, and moments when things escalated. By the end of the night, Dylan was officially taken into custody, told he was under investigation, and held while authorities looked further into what happened.
16-year-old Dylan Schumaker, the Springfield teenager accused of beating his girlfriend's toddler to death.
Mind your own business.
What the teenager blurted outside the courthouse was much different from what he weepingly said inside, pleading not guilty to killing the 2-year-old earlier this week.
Dylan had to sit in front of the jury. He explained what had happened. He admitted that he had been frustrated and that he hadn't handled the situation well. He spoke about the crying, the diaper changes, and the challenges of caring for 2 young children at the same time. He wanted the jury to understand that he hadn't planned for anything bad to happen. The prosecution told a different story. They showed the jury the timeline of the day. They explained that Austin had injuries that couldn't come from a simple fall. Medical experts spoke clearly, describing how the child had sustained serious injuries over several hours. They explained how repeated impacts could cause severe harm. Every mark, bruise, and swelling told a story, and the story did not match Dylan's version. Dylan listened quietly as the evidence was presented. He had never imagined the trial would be like this. He could see Austin's family in the courtroom, their faces full of sadness and anger. He tried to explain again, to tell them he hadn't meant to hurt Austin. But the jury had already heard the medical reports, the timeline, and other evidence. One of the most important moments came when a phone call Dylan had made to his mother while in custody was played. In the call, Dylan talked about how he might appear in court. The conversation revealed that he had been thinking about how people would see him, showing awareness of what might happen. This moment shocked everyone in the courtroom. It suggested that Dylan knew the seriousness of the situation.
That on July 23rd, 2013, in a phone call to your mother from the holding center, you stated, and I got a quote from the court reporter, "I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they're going to feel sorry for me," end quote.
Dylan cried openly when he addressed Ashley, Austin's mother. His tears were real, but the jury watched closely. They could see fear, regret, and confusion on his face. Dylan said he never wanted to hurt Austin, that he loved the little boy, and that he felt terrible for everything that had happened. Despite his words, the jury had to decide what the evidence showed, not just how Dylan looked.
I didn't mean to kill Austin. Ashley, I really didn't. I really think I did that. I didn't mean to hurt him.
Throughout the trial, medical testimony was presented in simple, clear terms. Doctors described the injuries and explained that the child had been seriously harmed over time. Each injury told a story of repeated struggles, not one single accident. The jury listened as experts explained how the injuries were different from what might happen if a child fell or bumped into something. They described patterns of force and movement that showed Austin had been hurt repeatedly.
Clearly, if a child or any human being is suffering multiple injuries over a period of time, that conduct is not accidental.
Other evidence included Dylan's own admissions during questioning. He had said that he had been frustrated, that he had lost control at times. Investigators and prosecutors showed how this behavior had led to serious consequences. The timeline of the day, combined with Dylan's account, created a clear picture of what had happened from morning until the moment Austin was found unresponsive. The emotional impact of the trial was heavy. Austin's family spoke about their grief and the shock of losing a child so young. Dylan's lawyer explained that Dylan had challenges of his own, including difficulties with anger and focus. They argued that Dylan had not fully understood the consequences of his actions, and that he had made mistakes without intending the worst.
But there were other dynamics at work there, including
my client's inability to either control his anger or frustration and his inexperience in babysitting.
The courtroom saw moments of tension and tears. Dylan's apology to Ashley was heartfelt. He expressed regret over the events and thanked his family for their support. He admitted that he had not handled the situation well, that he had failed to protect Austin in the way he should have. The jury listened carefully to both sides, weighing Dylan's words, the medical evidence, and the timeline of events. When the verdict came, it was clear that the jury had considered every piece of evidence. The trial had been long and detailed. The testimony of medical experts, the phone call to Dylan's mother, the timeline of the afternoon and evening, all of it shaped the decision. Dylan's emotional moments in the courtroom showed remorse, but the jury focused on the facts. Dylan's sentence was delivered by Judge M. William Baller. The judge emphasized that Dylan knew right from wrong, that he had been aware of his actions, and that he had caused immense pain. Letters from family members described the impact of the tragedy on everyone involved. Austin's grandfather spoke directly to the judge, expressing how the family's life had been changed forever. Dylan bowed his head as the judge spoke. He listened silently as the sentence was read. Tears ran down his face, and his hands shook. He tried to hold back sobs, but the emotion was too strong. The courtroom was silent except for the judge's words and the quiet weeping of Austin's family. Dylan's lawyer acknowledged the family's grief and reminded the court that Dylan had made mistakes, but also faced his own challenges growing up. Throughout the trial, it became clear that Dylan Schumaker had multiple chances to stop the situation with 2-year-old Austin Smith. Each time the child was hurt, Dylan could have asked for help or admitted he couldn't handle it. Instead, the abuse continued over several hours, alternating between normal tasks and repeated harm, all while he claimed Austin had fallen. The prosecution emphasized that even as a teenager, Dylan was legally and morally responsible for the child's safety. His repeated choices to harm Austin, ignore his suffering, and conceal the truth showed not only negligence, but troubling intent. Dylan's sister, Alex Schumaker, spoke publicly about her brother. She said, "This isn't something my brother would do. He went to Hopeville School and had just finished 6 months of rehab. He went to school. He did well. He was doing really good after rehab. And then, I don't know, he got 2 kids dumped on him out of nowhere, and he just snapped." Her words highlighted the tension between Dylan's personal struggles and the tragic outcome that night.
He went to school, he did good in school. He was doing really good, actually, after he got out of rehab. And then, I don't know, he got 2 kids dumped on him out of nowhere.
Austin's grandmother, Tracy Smith, also commented on the verdict. She said, "I'm pleased with the verdict, believing Dylan Schumaker knew he could have stopped abusing the child that night, but continued on. I don't think he started that way when he initially hit him. I don't think it initially was intent. I think it became intent at some point. I think he crossed over into intent." Her statement reflected the family's belief that the events escalated into deliberate harm, emphasizing both the seriousness of the actions and the impact on their lives.
I don't think he started that way when he initially hit him. I don't think it initially was intent. I think it became intent. At some point, I think he crossed over into intent.
As of the latest updates, Dylan remains incarcerated at the Clinton Correctional Facility in New York, serving his sentence. At 26 years old, he has completed roughly half of his term and will continue under strict monitoring should he ever be released. Conditions imposed by the state are designed to mitigate risks and ensure ongoing supervision. The Dylan Schumaker case is a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of child abuse and the crucial responsibility caregivers have to protect children. Austin Smith's death was entirely preventable, yet the prolonged and deliberate abuse he suffered shows how dangerous failing to intervene can be. Even as a teenager, Dylan understood the weight of his actions, making the tragedy all the more heartbreaking. His courtroom tears may have shown guilt, but the jury prioritized accountability over sympathy. What would you do if you witnessed a situation like this? Could you step in and act? If this story shocked you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime cases and courtroom breakdowns. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take on this case.